How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about The Beastmaster from 1982. This is directed by Don Coscarelli and stars Marc Singer and Tanya Roberts. This movie is about this kid who, before he was even born, an evil wizard planned to kill him as a sacrifice. So he sends this witch out to the pregnant mother who, using magic, moves the baby into the womb of a cow and then sneaks off to her little witch lair, takes it out, and is about to kill it in this big ritual. However, unfortunately for the witch and very fortunately for the baby, a hunter comes along and sees what's about to happen and kills the witch and saves the baby. Now, he doesn't know really whose baby this is, so he raises it as his own, and because he had gone partway through a ritual, or at least I assume this is why, the kid grows up with animal powers. He has the ability to share his thoughts and visions with animals and see the thoughts and visions of animals, so he can talk to them and look through their eyes, which is a pretty cool power. He grows up in his village, and over time, the evil wizard has imprisoned his father and taken over the kingdom. And after he grows up, the evil wizard's men also destroy his new home, leaving him alone, and he sets out for revenge, on a quest for revenge against the new leader. This is kind of I find with fantasy, there's, two typical kinds. A lot of it's more medieval fantasy now. This movie is more barbarian type fantasy, and, you get small villages and temples and, everyone running around in loincloths and stuff. So if you're a fan of the barbarian swords and sorcery type deal, this is a pretty good example of that. The classic tale of your main hero that runs around, gathers friends, and goes on a big journey, told a little better than normal. The people he meets along the way, you get the slave girl character played by Tanya Roberts. Tanya Roberts he meets, falls in love with, but she's of course tied to the villain and can't leave. And he also meets two other travelers, a grown man and a little boy that want to get to the city for their own reasons. But the cool thing too is with this movie, it's not just his human companions, but his animal companions. And with the ability to talk to animals, he could just, talk to them in passing, but the movie makes a smart decision to add them to his crew instead. So it's not just any animals, they're his animal friends, and you really get to know them as characters. He has his hawk, which he can use to see far distances. He has his two little weasels, who are his thieves that he can send to get things for him and do stealth work. And then he has his big tiger, which he can use for his power and strength. It's the big warrior character, which is a good selection of animals with unique and different abilities. And getting to know the animals, too, really helps, add more character to this movie, and you feel more invested in the world. I was interested in this because this is a Don Coscarelli movie. If you know this channel, I primarily cover horror. I think this might be the first fantasy I've covered. Don Coscarelli, primarily known for horror, Phantasm, Bubba Hotep, John Dies at the End. And in this movie, you do get to see some darker scenes where his horror background shines through. Like anything with the witches, or there's this one scene with some bird/bat type people that are cool and dark. But the whole movie itself isn't really too dark. It does have some darker fantasy scenes, but it's for the most part a good and generally family-friendly adventure thing, and I know a lot of people, this was 1982, a lot of people who were kids in the 80s grew up watching this, and I do kind of have to address that though. This is a PG movie, but this is 1982 PG, and the rating has changed as well as, I guess, people's standards for violence and stuff like that, because you watch this and it's kind of hard to think that this would be PG. This was, yeah, pre-PG-13, and when they said parental guidance back then, they meant parental guidance. There's a fair amount of violence in this movie, and a tiny bit of nudity even, which it's hard to think of a PG movie having that. But back then they're like, yeah, the kid, we'll take them, we'll go with them. It's, PG, we'll guide them, but the kids can come have fun with it. So it's kind of weird to think about some of the things that got into a PG movie back then, but it is really meant to be, in general, something to, just watch this fun adventure, so it depends on, who the kids are, I guess, read the parental guidance stuff on the back of the DVD and make your own decisions, But that being said, I've seen a fair bit, I haven't really covered too many on the channel, a fair bit of we're going on a fantasy adventure, and a lot of them they go on way too many side tasks, and they get distracted, and they're not super interesting, they're really boring. A lot of them wind up on Mystery Science Theater. This is a fair cut above the rest, it's not the, gold tier classic where everyone has to watch it, but it's a very good watch. And it also, one thing I do want to say, having the decision for a lot of the fantasy elements to be real-world animals, practical effects, much like digital effects today, they depend on two things: the time that you have and the budget that you have. The more time and the more budget, whether for practical or digital effects, will make something look better. And a lot of these movies didn't have either time nor budget, and you get some really bad practical effects in some old fantasy movies, but this one had a really smart decision to use real-world animals. So they're not an effect. Well, I mean, they kind of are, but they weren't trying to make some non-Earth creature, and in turn, you go out, you get some trained animals, you get to see some really cool animals on the screen. If you're an animal lover, you'll like this, and you'll get to see animals that look real and convincing because they are, in fact, real. So that really did help the movie age very well, because, you don't have some weird, last-minute rubber mask on this fictional monster. It's actual tigers, actual hawks, actual weasels, which I thought was really cool. But anyway, this movie, it's a cut above a lot of the other fantasy movies. A really good example of sword and sorcery, and it's a fun fantasy movie. I'd say go and check it out if you're at all interested in that. It's well above its peers. Anyway, I'll have more Don Coscarelli movies in the future. I already have a review for Bubba Hotep out, but I'll do more of his movies in the future. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fantasy fan. I primarily came over for Don Coscarelli, although I do really appreciate the genre. I'm more a horror guy. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. There is a Beastmaster 2 and I believe a Beastmaster 3, as well as a TV show that got 2 or 3 seasons. Maybe you guys can tell me if those are worth checking out. Like, are they as good as this? Is the show good? Are the sequels good? I'd like to hear, But anyway, for those of you who watched the whole thing, thank you for watching. And for those of you who've liked and subscribed, thank you so much. You are really helping the channel out. I'll be back with more movies very soon. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you next time.